welcome to the X-22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 464, and today's date is September 10th, 2014, and the title of this episode is U.S. Free Syrian Army and U.S.-created Islamic State Working Together to Remove Assad. Before I get started, I just want to welcome all those new subscribers on YouTube. If you haven't visited the X22report.com site, come on over. I have many different things on the site. I put up Sentinel alerts during the day. A lot of times I will comment on what is happening out in the world. We also have the forum, which is called The People, and this is like-minded people talking about the economic collapse. It is completely free to join. All you need is a handle, username, and an email address. You can make an email address up. Doesn't really matter. If you're hesitant in joining, I understand. You can still read the forum and pretty much read what other people are saying about what is going on in the world. And if later on, if you want to join, that is fine. You can just go ahead and sign up and join. It's very, very easy to do. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we completely understand that Obama is going to be out there talking about the Islamic State and the way he's going to attack them if we're going to war with Syria. And we can see that this is really starting to build up. And this is all I see all over the corporate news today is, will he strike Syria? Will he bomb Syria? And we have to remember, he just can't bomb a sovereign nation, especially when the nation is saying, do not bomb us, and Russia is right behind Syria saying, yeah, don't bomb Syria. So we can see right now this is a main problem, and we understand that the Islamic State is completely created by the United States, UK, Israel, and other Arab nations to get into Syria, and this is part of the plan here. And we can see this has been building up. Tomorrow, September 11th, is 9/11, when the World Trade Center towers came down, and we know that was a complete false flag, and we can see that everything is on high alert because of the Islamic State and everything that's coming out of a lot of the government officials, corporate media. And what they're really doing is they're just trying to bring the fear factor up, convince everyone that the Islamic State is coming to get them, and this is all they're doing. Let's get into the economic collapse news here, and let's talk about what's going on now. The French economy, as we know, is completely falling apart, and it's just not the French economy. It's Spain, it's Portugal, it's Cyprus, it's Greece. We know it's all of them. But what we're seeing right now is Brussels is a little bit upset with France, and the news that they're reporting that their economy is not doing well, they're kind of blaming France and bringing down the Eurozone right now. And this is no way the case whatsoever. Every single one of those countries is having their own problems. They're receiving more and more debt. They're imposing more austerity on their people, and people just cannot find work. It is unsustainable. And they went on to say that France's austerity measures have put its citizens under more financial pressure than ever. Sales tax and retirement taxes have been raised, while massive cuts to social services have forced households to dip into their own pockets to cover for government absence. And we absolutely see this, and it's not just happening in France. Even though they're reporting on this, it's happening in all the countries in Eurozone. Some are a little bit worse than others. It's happening here in the United States. Everyone that cannot find work, who are underemployed, are dipping into their savings, and when they run out of savings, they go to their credit cards. When they don't have any more credit cards, they're kind of stuck, and a lot of people are on the streets. A lot of people have moved back with their parents, and we can see that the private Western economy is completely falling apart. Now, we understand the United States is keeping the illusion alive with manipulated numbers, and right now GDP is looking pretty bad for the third quarter. Now, we have to understand that GDP is basically an exercise in inventory expansion and contraction. Now, we saw the Q2 inventory estimates were about 40% of GDP, and what's happening right now is the July wholesale inventories is showing that it is much lower than expected. They expected about a 0.5% rise month-on-month inventories, but it only rose about 0.1%. So when we look into Q3, it's not looking good whatsoever, because we have to remember, once they continually put more and more products into inventory, who's going to purchase all of this? And of course, this is one way of manipulating GDP to make it look really great. And you have to remember, we came from a negative number, what is it, 2.1%, negative 2.1%, and then they pushed it all the way up to 3%. It's absolutely ridiculous how they did this, and it is to convince everyone that we are in a recovery and everything is fine. And we saw the exact same thing happen back in August of 2013, moving into September of 2013, and we were about to get into war. We were about to have a false flag event, but Putin stepped in. The people were not behind the president. Congress was not behind the president to invade Syria. But now it's a little different. Everything has changed. They can't keep the illusion alive. The economy, the European economy, is falling apart, and it is getting worse and worse as time goes on. And they realize this. The indicators, the real economic indicators, and their illusionary numbers are on opposite ends of the earth, and they're trying to get something started, and this is why you see this run-up to war. And they're already telling you that once they go after the Islamic State, this is not going to last, 1, 2. It's going to last for a very long time. Yeah, because it's called World War III. That's the part they're not telling you. Now, we look at the housing market, and we're seeing that, yep, mortgage applications, refinancing applications, guess what? They have fallen once again. Mortgage application activity, which includes both refinancing and home purchases, fell 7.2% in the week ended September 5th. So where's this housing recovery? How could there be a housing recovery where every single week the mortgage applications and refinance applications continually fall? And they're saying that refinancing applications dropped by 10.7%, while the gauge of loan requests for home purchases, a leading indicator of home sales, fell 2.6%. Now this is, again, that keeps falling. Mortgages keep falling, and we saw that the rates rose a little bit, and look what happened. Everything started to collapse, and of course the Fed's out there saying, we need to raise rates. This won't hurt the economy. Well, guess what? Rates started going up 2007 into 2008. Real estate came crashing down. It imploded on itself. You saw in California where people were like, well, the ARMs that they had, the adjustable rate mortgages, their time frame came up. They had a lock-in on an interest rate. It was much higher. Nobody could make their payments. And everyone started to say, you know what, I'm out of this. I can't pay for this house. This is out. I'm done. And we're going to see the same thing happen. But again, they're going to use an event to try to cover this entire thing up. Now, the Federal Reserve is becoming very, very desperate. And we can see they're doing things that normally they would not do, and all of a sudden they are preparing to asset strip local governments. The Federal Reserve, along with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, just changed the liquidity requirements for the nation's largest banks. Municipal bonds, long considered safe liquid investments, have been eliminated from the list of high-quality liquid collateral. That means banks that are the largest holders of munis are liable to start dumping them in favor of what? Treasuries and corporate bonds that do satisfy the requirements. Muni bonds fund the nation's critical infrastructure, and they are subject to the whims of the market. As demand goes down, interest rates must be raised to attract buyers. The Fed's latest rules change could be the final nail in the municipal bond coffin, another misguided move by regulators that not only does not hit its mark but results in serious collateral damage to local governments. They're pretty much taking whatever they can from the local governments. They're feeding it into the big banks. They're telling them to drop all the munis, go after the treasuries to prop the system up. And this may be serious enough to finally propel them into bankruptcy. And we know a lot of towns, a lot of cities, they're on the brink of going bankrupt. Why this unprecedented move by the U.S. regulators? Well, what we're seeing here, the Fed just imposed financial austerity on the states. They write that on September 3rd, the federal regulators adopted a new rule that requires the country's largest banks, those with $250 billion or more in total assets, to hold an increased level of newly defined high-quality liquid assets in order to meet a potential run on the bank during a credit crisis. The 5 largest Wall Street banks control the majority of deposits in the country. By disqualifying municipal bonds from the category of liquid assets, the biggest banks are likely to trim back their holdings in munis, which could raise the cost or limit the ability of states, counties, cities, and school districts to issue muni bonds to build schools, roads, bridges, and other infrastructure needs. The results will be to further shift power and financial resources from the public sector to the private sector. If state and municipal governments want to protect themselves, they will need to form their own publicly owned banks, and time is of the essence if they hope to beat the rush before the U.S. Cyprus-style bail-in. So we can see right now the Fed is taking steps to protect these banks from a bank run. They're taking it from the local governments, dropping the munis, and we can see this is their last-ditch attempt because guess what they know? The collapse is coming, and they realize people are going to try to take their money out. And then they're going to have to implement the bail-in documents. And we can see this is coming. We know it's coming. Why would they be doing all of this if none of this is going to happen? It just reminds me of 2008 when the chairman of the Fed tells us that they're not projecting a recession in the year of 2008 when he was saying it. I mean, he was saying it in 2008, and we had a recession in 2008. We saw a market crash in 2008. So right here, right now, you can see they have prepared. They prepared with bail-in documents. They're preparing with beefing the banks up and protecting them. And who's going to pay the price? Well, the people. That's how it always is. The people always pay the price. And like I've said before, this is my opinion, and this is what I do. I only leave what I need in the banks to pay bills. Everything else is in precious metals, completely separate and apart from the system. I do keep cash on hand. I'm not telling you where I keep it or the precious metals, but I've been trying to tell family members, other friends, and of course everyone looks at me like I'm crazy, but I do it and I say to them, listen, just please take out whatever portion you want, put it someplace safe for the next 6-8 months. If nothing happens and this just all blows over, guess what? You can put it right back in the bank. Believe me, you didn't lose any interest because right now it's 0%. And actually, if you count in inflation, it's negative. So you're really not losing anything. And believe me, the robbery of your money is not going to come from the outside bank robbers coming in. It's going to be the bankers themselves. So this is what I've been telling people. A lot of people think I'm crazy. Why should I do this? I've never heard of this before. And a lot of people do it saying, maybe just in case he's right, maybe we should do this. Now, as we know, Russia is moving away from the SWIFT payment system, and now it looks like they're combining their efforts with China. Russia and China are discussing setting up a system of interbank transactions, which will become an analog to international banking transaction system SWIFT. China's payment system UnionPay cooperation with yet to be established Russian national payment system. UnionPay is ready for a full-scale collaboration and will provide all infrastructural capacities for that. So they're preparing themselves, and of course they're separating themselves from the West. They don't want to deal with their payment system. They don't want to deal with the banks. They don't want to deal with the dollar currency, because they realize how everything is starting to ramp up here. They know the central bankers are moving towards war, and this is why Russia is protecting itself. China is protecting itself. They're beefing up their armed forces. They see the military assets being maneuvered all over the place. They realize the president is out there saying we need to contain Russia, we need to contain China, and they see that the United States is continually blaming these countries for pretty much everything, so they know exactly what is going on. They realize that we are headed towards war. Now, Obamacare is a complete failure, and it's starting to lose public approval, and the surveys are showing that people are not looking at this as a viable solution for health care. It is failing, and the public approval for Obamacare is continually sinking this summer, and people are looking at this saying that this is a complete failure and it's not for the people. All you're doing is taxing us, raising our premiums, putting penalties on us, and we're not getting any benefit from this whatsoever. Now, the police have a new tool out there. It's a non-lethal police weapon. Basically, it blinds you for about 10 to 15 minutes. Instead of using flashbang grenades and all that kind of stuff, this tactical equipment for the police to use in riots is manufactured by Z-Pro. It is a non-lethal compliance weapon, and it basically blinds you, and you can't see for 10 to 15 minutes. So they have a new weapon. I know Europe is getting the water cannons, but here in the United States, it seems like they're just beefing up with these type of weapons. I don't know if you saw that weapon that works on microwaves where they can point it at you and your whole body starts to heat up. And they have all this stuff to push people back and make sure they can control them. Okay, now with Ebola, we see that the West African nations are being hit very, very hard, and we can see the U.S. is bringing in military into this region. The economies are completely falling apart. The governments seem like they're falling apart. They don't know what to do, and pilots flying Ebola patients to USA more exposed are brought here than are reported right now, but a lot of them are not really infected, because we did have a case here where and you guys must have seen this, where a U.S. Air Marshal said he was stabbed with a syringe in Nigeria. Now, of course, it happened in Nigeria, and what's happening is the Nigerian aviation officials and security detail are reviewing the videos, and it shows no evidence whatsoever that the U.S. Air Marshal was stabbed with a syringe in the airport in Lagos. And the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria are saying that we don't know why this person is saying this. Of course, the FBI declined to comment on this whatsoever, and it doesn't really matter because the syringe tested negative for Ebola and the Air Marshal is fine. But why did they do this and bring this up in Nigeria? Are they trying to say that Nigeria is purposely trying to infect people? It's starting to seem like they're ramping that story up. Now, they're also pushing the story of Boko Haram. We know they use the terrorism card to get the country to say, you know what, we're scared here, we have terrorists. Let the U.S. military, let the FBI, let the CIA, let them all come in here to help us. But Nigeria has been pushing back and saying, no, we do not want this. And they're saying that, and this is coming from U.S. Corporate media, similarities between the post-Caliphate Boko Haram and the Islamic State have intelligence agencies searching for a practical relationship between the two, because they want to merge them, because we know that the president is getting ready to go after the Islamic State, and wherever the Islamic State is, that's where the U.S. wants to go. And we can see they're trying to make the case now, and they're trying to get into all of these West African countries, and they're going to push this agenda until they get what they want. And the thing is, as they keep pushing, other countries are going to push back, and this is where the problem comes in. Now, we understand the United States central bankers are down in Sudan, and they're fighting pretty much China down there. China is on one side, the United States central bankers on the other, and China now is bringing in troops. Everyone thinks World War III is about to start. I hate to say this, World War III has been going on. It just hasn't really been announced to the public yet. China began deploying 700 soldiers to a United Nations peacekeeping force in South Sudan to help guard the country's embattled oil fields and protect Chinese workers and installations. The airlift of the Chinese Infantry Battalion to the South Sudanese states of Unity and Upper Nile, the site of the only operating oil field still under control of the central government in Juba, was expected to take several days. Their posting to South Sudan marks a sharp escalation of China's efforts to ensure the safety of its workers, its assets in Africa, and guarantee a steady flow of energy for domestic consumption. So we can see right now China is moving in with forces, and they're trying to protect their interests. And we're going to see this happen in West Africa also. We're going to see China bringing in more troops into this area. We might even see Russia bringing in additional troops to help out in certain areas. And this is how it all gets started. And we just haven't heard the big bang yet to say, yes, we're in a war. But that's coming because we can see the United States central bankers are really pushing this agenda in the Middle East. And again, I hate to say this, but the players are all the same. It is Iran, it is Syria, it is North Korea, it is China, it is Russia. So it's going to include all of them. Now, it looks like the U.S. corporate media is out there saying that Russia is limiting the EU gas to restrict the reverse supply to Ukraine. Poland is out there complaining, saying that their supplies have been cut in the last 2 days. Gazprom is out there saying that they're not confirming any type of reduction. Russian state-controlled energy giant Gazprom does not confirm reduction of its gas supplies to Poland. Reports of news agencies on the reduction of volumes of gas supplies by Gazprom to Poland are incorrect. The same volume of gas as in previous days, 23 million cubic meters a day, is supplied to Poland right now. So Poland right now says, okay, we're going to stop and suspend the reverse flow pumping to Ukraine. Who knows? Maybe something happened to the pipeline, or maybe Russia is limiting the supplies there because they're doing something that really shouldn't be doing. They really shouldn't be doing, but they're going ahead and they're doing it. Poland has suspended reverse flow deliveries of natural gas to Ukraine, the head of the Ukrainian operator company. Now, you know, Ukraine hasn't paid their bill for natural gas. They've been trying to store natural gas, and they're a little bit short, so they put I think it was like $1 million or so to bring coal up from South Africa because, as you know, winter is going to be very, very cold. Europe has been taking the natural gas and putting it into underground areas to protect themselves if Russia should shut off their gas. Now, you know they've been doing this for quite a while, so you know all of this has been scripted from the beginning. Now, Australia is out there, and they're going to enhance its military technical cooperation with Ukraine and is planning to train soldiers and provide funding and equipment for the Ukraine Army. Australia will consider the opportunity of enhancing military technical cooperation. As the first stage, will send a lot of military equipment and means of warming. Also, Australia is ready to begin programs of training and equipment of Ukrainian servicemen. Now, this is all during the ceasefire. We have NATO drills in the Black Sea. We have Australia, NATO, and U.S. supplying Ukraine with more weapons. Ukraine is reinforcing their troops in the region during this ceasefire. And for me, it seems like something is building up right now. Because you have to remember, once World War III starts, Russia and Ukraine are right there. NATO will be bringing in more and more military assets along with Australia and other countries, of course U.S., and we can see they have to hit them from all fronts, and we can see how this is completely building up right now. Now, the U.S. and other countries, and France, all the NATO countries are out there saying that Libya is becoming a terror hub on the EU's doorstep. The South is a sort of a hub for terrorist groups where they come to resupply, including weapons, and they reorganize there, and it's just getting really, really scary in this region of North Africa. And they're saying that they need to do something. So what's happening? Well, a House panel heard Wednesday that Libya is also spiraling into a failed state. Well, I hate to say this, it's already done. The government is off on a Greek ferry. There's a new government in town. They've taken over the country, but militias there have shown interest in the Islamic State, and this is what they're reporting. And of course, they're using this to say, yes, the Islamic State is in Libya. So the Obama administration is deeply concerned that weapons and fighters flowing through the increasingly chaotic North African country could end up on the battlefields in Iraq and Syria. Now, he's making the case that we might have to go into Libya, we might have to go into Lebanon, we might have to go wherever the Islamic State is. And this is going to be a long, stretched-out war in this area. And of course, as we know, Russia, China, North Korea, they're all going to get involved because they're going to make their move on Syria. Now, it looks like Algeria is reporting that the U.S. and France are going to facilitate military operations against the militant groups in the neighboring Libya. U.S. and France have both asked Algeria to open its airspace to surveillance planes and other military planes transferring commando units for a reconnaissance mission in parts of Libya. This is how it starts. He added that the U.S. and France have made the same request of other states near Libya. So everything is getting prepared. The script has been set. They know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to move in. They're putting everything into position. They're going to get ready to attack Libya. They're going into Iraq. They'll be going into Lebanon. They'll be going into Yemen. And of course, they will be making the big move into Syria because they need to control the entire Middle East. They cannot let these people take control of their countries, kick out the puppet regime, remove the central bank, and sell this oil for whatever currency they want, or gold, silver, or anything else, because this then would completely collapse the system, and the central bankers, U.S. government, will not let this happen until they have an event and they get the war started so they can point their fingers at this other group, at this other country, and say they're the ones who collapsed the economy. We had nothing to do with it. We were in recovery. Now, it is being reported that NATO member Turkey, and as you know, Turkey with Erdogan had that false flag where he snuck his soldiers into Syria and had them fire missiles across into Turkey, and they tried to make it look like Syria was firing upon Turkey, but it fell apart because of the YouTube video and Twitter, and this is why he pretty much shut all that down so it wouldn't get out, but it was too late. It did get out. But right now, Turkey is helping the Islamic fighters to launder money to finance their operations. Of course they are. They're stealing oil from Syria. They captured the oil fields. They bring it into the Kurdish region of Iraq. They transport it through Turkey up into Europe, and they sell it to Ukraine, other EU nations. And all this is done using the U.S. dollar. The United States says absolutely nothing. Why? Because they know what's going on, because they're making sure this is how it's being funded. They want them to do this because they control them. The Islamic State, Turkey continues to keep open its borders to allow the Islamic State and anyone else that wants to join them, they can go right over the border and they can cross right into Syria, right into the area who wants to help out in this region. Turkey has been a major gathering point for fighters throughout the world to obtain training. Turkey remains an even greater conduit of money laundering to ISIS than Qatar. Turkey has been sending close to $1 billion to the Islamic State for oil shipments, predominantly from the Islamic State-occupied Syria and Iraq. And we know this is exactly what's going on. Now, Russia is out there once again, and they're saying that airstrikes by the U.S. Air Force at the Islamic State positions in Syria without consent from Damascus would add more new complications to the international community's effort to counteract terrorism. And this is coming from the Russian ambassador Vitaly Churkin. This will complicate international operations and will pose problems for Russia as well as for many other countries respecting international law, including China, he said. So we can see right now they are warning the United States, do not do this, because they're going to step up and there's going to be huge, huge problems. And they're not the only two countries. There's like 80-something BRIC nations compared to the like 60 or so Western central bank nations. So we can see we're heading towards this fight. Now, of course, there's a lot of congressmen, a lot of corporate media people out there saying that Obama has the authority to strike the Islamic State. Well, he really does not. I ran a poll here on the x22report.com. It's still running right now, but the early results are that the question was, does President Obama need the authority of Congress to bomb the Islamic State in the country of Syria? And people are saying yes, he does need the authority, and that's 92% of the people said that. 8% says no, he doesn't. But we have to look at the Wars Power Act. Well, the United States hasn't been attacked from Syria. Even though they're Islamic State in there, they're not really part of Syria. So it's a hard case to say that, oh, we can go into your country because of this. So Syria hasn't attacked anything, and Syria is out there saying, do not attack us. So under the Wars Power Act, he can't do anything. The UN hasn't voted and said, yes, you can go in there. And he's gone into Iraq already to bomb there and gave Congress 60 days notice. Under the Constitution, Obama does not have the authority to arbitrarily bomb Syria since it's a sovereign nation, and Assad and Russia said absolutely not. Under international law, UN Charter Article 2, Paragraph 4, all members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state or in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. So he still can't do it. So really, he does not have the authority to do this whatsoever. Now, of course, he's President Obama. He has a pen, he has a paper, and he can say he can do this, but it's up to our government officials, Congress, and the people of the United States to say absolutely not. You cannot go into that nation and bomb. But of course, Harry Reid is out there saying, yes, President Obama does not need additional authority from lawmakers to strike the Islamic State in Syria. Well, maybe he needs to go and read up on the Constitution and the rest of the laws, and he can figure that, yeah, he does need permission. He just can't do this. Now, they're bringing up the case that Syria has used chlorine gas back in April. Now, the OPCW, the Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons, released their report, and they're saying, yes, chlorine gas was used in April in the northern section of Syria, but they did not point fingers on who used it. But of course, the corporate media is out there saying, it was Assad, it was Assad. But let's think back for a second. We had the UN Security Council inside of Syria removing his chemical weapons. Why in the world would he all of a sudden use chemical weapons while they're there? It's the same argument as we go back to August 2013. Russia and Syria invited the UN Security Council into Syria. They put them up in a hotel because they wanted them to inspect the area where chemical weapons were used in the past to show that Assad didn't use them. During this time, all of a sudden, chemical weapons were used, and of course it was blamed on Assad, and then eventually we learned it was the rebels. Now we have the same thing going on. It makes no sense. He has no motive. He got the United States off his back, and he was winning the battle in Syria, so why would all of a sudden he use them? He wouldn't. There's no reason to do it at this point, but who would have a motive to do it? Ah, yes, the United States, the Free Syrian Army. You know, the government officials that continually lie to us over and over and over again. But they're bringing this out to make a point about chemical weapons once again. Now, Obama is out there, and he's trying to make the case to Congress that we need to give the Free Syrian Army more weapons, and this will help us defeat the Islamic State. Well, wait. So you're telling us by arming the Free Syrian Army, this will help defeat the Islamic State? No, because the Islamic State is part of the Free Syrian Army. It's all part of the same system. We know the Islamic State has U.S. weapons, and let's just say they're not part of it. Let's just go out on a limb here and say they're not. So basically, he wants to give the same weapons that were stolen by the Islamic State from the Free Syrian Army. It makes no sense what they're talking about here. But we do know the Islamic State and the Free Syrian Army, they work together because they are as one. They were trained in the same place in the secret bases in Jordan. They were given anti-tank, anti-aircraft weapons. They were trained on how to use them, and they were trained before the elections of Assad. They knew Assad was going to win the elections, and they knew their chance of removing him was dead in the water, and this is why they had the Islamic State move into Iraq to create the conditions we see right now. Now, of course, the Islamic State loves to threaten everyone, and they're threatening Twitter right now for hurting their terror propaganda because Twitter, I guess, took them down and said, we're not having you tweet anymore, which is, I think, is the right thing to do. I mean, it is a terror organization, so the United States will not be, the Islamic State will not be able to tweet anymore about what they're doing and use social media in this way. Now, the Islamic State has also made a threat to Saudi Arabia, but we have to understand something about Saudi Arabia. They have been talking to Russia and China. They understand the dollar, their days of the dollar are doomed. And they've been making preparations just like every other country, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Canada. They've been making bilateral trades with China, making arrangements with Russia, just in case everything comes tumbling down. Now, of course, as we know, 9/11's coming up, and we can see that they're flashing in front of us the secret classified documents of 9/11, and we know what it already says, that Saudi Arabia brought down the towers, but we know that's not true. We know it was Israel, Mossad, who actually brought down the towers, but they kept Saudi Arabia in their back pocket to use if they decided to move away from the Western Central Bank system, and this is why the Islamic State is now threatening Saudi Arabia at this time. Now, it seems like they are bringing back the same type of tactics they used when Iraq invaded Kuwait, and we had that girl who was testifying, who said she was a nurse. But again, that girl from Kuwait was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador in Washington. She was not a nurse, and the whole Kuwaiti incubator baby story was completely false. But now they're using the Yazidi girl, and she's out there telling her story. A 14-year-old Yazidi girl has given her first-hand account of escaping from the Islamic State. She said she was in prison there, they used to beat her, and they're just awful. And they're doing the same exact thing they did in the past. It's the same playbook. They haven't even changed it. All they did was change the names, and pretty much that's it. They're doing the same type of story. They haven't really done anything else. Now, you know that laptop that was seized and had all the information about the Islamic State? Nothing was encrypted. It was just completely open. They had it on a Windows 95 system where you can just go in there and get whatever you want. Well, they found another set of files. And in the laptop, they found out that the Islamic State hideout in Syria reveals frightening blueprints for making ricin, plastic explosives, and car bombs. So you can see what they're doing. They are completely fear-mongering, letting you know that ricin will be floating around the United States. Now, like I said, this attack on the United States has to be full force, multi-pronged, go for the gold, because this is the end game. They have no other choice at this point, unless they just let the whole thing collapse and everyone blames the central bank and the U.S. government. We don't go to war and we restart the government, we kick them out, and they're not going to let this happen. So this is why they're moving so hard to do all of this. But what's very interesting is that the Free Syrian Army and the Islamic State are now working together. The U.S.-backed Free Syrian Army and the Islamic State have paired together in order to fight President Assad, according to statements from multiple commanders from within the FSA. We are collaborating with the Islamic State by attacking the Syrian army. Our battle is with the Assad regime, and it is on Syrian lands only. According to another Free Syrian Army commander, the combining forces with the Islamic terror outfits was needed in order to achieve the greater good. We have reached a point where we have to collaborate with anyone against unfairness and injustice, said the FSA commander Abu Khalid. So we can see right now they've been working with the Islamic State because really they're as one, and they're both controlled by the U.S. government, and they're doing exactly what we thought they were going to do. They are going to be the ground force in Syria. They've always needed the air power of the United States to clear the way for them to get up to Damascus and get to Assad. And they're going to try this one way or another. And this is why they're trying to bring in Syria as best they possibly can to say, oh, they're a terrorist organization, they're using chlorine weapons, we need to go in there, they're working with the Islamic State. They're using everything they possibly can at this point. And you know that Russia and China are on the other side. And when they see this and when they see it happening, this is when it really starts to go downhill. And we can see the only way to get in there that I can see at this point, I mean, of course, Obama can do whatever he wants. He can just say, oh, forget the event. Let's just go in there and just start World War III. Yes, he could do that. But to get the American people and Congress motivated to go in there and to cover up the collapse, they need an event. And again, if they just go in there and they start fighting, it really doesn't cover the collapse. It doesn't really lay blame to Russia that they caused the economic collapse, because the economic collapse will be happening and they'll be fighting in this area, but who do they blame it on? So they're definitely going to need some type of an event to point the finger at someone. And we can see that Obama's coming out tonight to do his speech, and of course, he'll tell you everything that they're going to do, how they want to get in there, how they want to free, how they want democracy, how they want to get the Islamic State, and he'll probably say, let me be clear about 3,000 times. And we know eventually what's going to happen is an event will occur. We will see the lights go out. We will see ricin being distributed. We'll see a couple of car bombs. We will see planes in the air with dirty nukes. All of it will be traced back to the Islamic State. All of a sudden, the financial systems will go down. They'll blame it on Russia. They'll blame it on China. That will give them the ability to say it is time to go to war. Of course, they're going to let the people suffer for a little while. They don't want it to end too soon. They want the people to get angry, because if they only let it go a day or two, it doesn't have the effect they want. They want it to go a little bit longer. They want people to feel it. They want people to understand who did it. They want to continually make announcements with the president on the TV. Now, of course, the power is not going to go out in every single area in the beginning. Most likely, you'll probably see more of planes coming in and ricin and car bombs first, and then power will start going out, because they want to get their message out there first. And this will slowly happen over time, and eventually they'll say, we had enough, we need to go in there. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.